When former Hollyoaks actress Rachel Shenton stepped up to receive her Oscar for Best Live-Action Short Film on Sunday night, it became the feel-good moment of the 90th Academy Awards ceremony. Hands shaking, she delivered her acceptance speech in sign language, a promise she had made to Maisie Sly, the 6-year-old leading lady of The Silent Child, which Rachel wrote and co-starred in. Rachel said, "Our movie is about a deaf child being born into a world of silence. It is not exaggerated or sensationalized for the movie. Millions of children all over the world live in silence and face communication barriers and particularly access to education. Deafness is a silent disability. You can't see it and it is not life-threatening, so I want to say the biggest of thank yous to the Academy for allowing us to put this in front of a mainstream audience." Her sentiments sent social media into meltdown. Promised Shay added afterwards, "I didn't want Maisie to not look at me and look at the interpreter. I made a promise and I kept it even though I was a bit shaky. It is a long way from Hollyoaks to Hollywood, but the heartwarming, fairy tale factor in this particular story does not end there." The film was directed by Rachel's fiancé Chris Overton, who also starred in the Channel 4 soap, and the pair made it with a budget of just £10,000 sourced from crowdfunding. Their own parents even baked and sold fairy cakes, generating £1,000 to add to the pot. But then raising awareness of deafness is something that Rachel, who is from Stoke-on-Trent, has long held dear. She was just 11 years old when her father, Jeff, lost his hearing. It had a profound effect on Rachel. She said, "Dad tried to put on a brave face for us and pretend everything was fine, but it meant a huge adjustment for the family. There are so many everyday things that you take for granted, such as answering the telephone or chatting around the meal table." Inspired by her own family experience, aged 16 she started to learn sign language and 5 years later qualified as a British Sign Language interpreter. She recalled, "I found it a helpful way of dealing with what had happened." While appearing in Hollyoaks, she offered her help to the National Deaf Children's Society and has been actively involved in its fundraising and campaigns ever since, including climbing Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. Closer to home, she is a patron of the charity Deaflinks Staffordshire, for which she completed a 10-day fundraising trek across the Great Wall of China. Although she could never have known it at the time, Rachel's route to stardom began with drama and dance classes when she was 6. She went on to land small parts in the BBC series Waterloo Road and Holby City, but made her name playing the part of wannabe model Mitzi Miniver in Hollyoaks from 2010 to 2013, when the character was shown flying off to start a new life in the US in 2013. It was a case of life imitating art. Soon after, Rachel, 30, won a part in the US drama Switched at Birth about two teenage girls who were switched at birth and grew up in very different circumstances. She played a student teacher who was fluent in sign language. During her 3 years in the teen show, she filmed an entire episode solely in sign language. Rachel recalled, "American Sign Language is quite different from British, so it meant some extra learning." After the 5th and final series of the show aired early last year, she turned her attention to writing The Silent Child and the search to find a little girl to play the lead role. Facebook find Maisie, who is from Swindon and was born deaf, beat 100 other children to the pot after her parents, Elizabeth, who is also deaf, and Gilson, who is partially deaf, replied to Rachel's post on Facebook appealing for a deaf child who communicates entirely through sign language. Maisie plays the part of Libby, a girl who lives in a world of silence until a social worker, Shenton, teaches her to communicate through sign language. It is her first acting role, and after filming finished, Rachel organized a surprise screening of The Silent Child at Maisie's school last August. Ahead of the Oscars, she also gave her a tour of Los Angeles. Still, despite the glitz and glamour, in a 2015 interview Rachel admitted that, "I miss my mum and my family, and proper tea, baked beans, rice pies and Staffordshire oatcakes with cheese and bacon." So perhaps unsurprisingly, last November she revealed she had been tempted back to Britain with a starring role in the second series of the BBC Two show White Gold, written by the In-Betweeners creator Damon Beasley. Other Oscar winners who have used sign language in their acceptance speech: as in 1976, Louise Fletcher signed to her deaf parents when she won Best Actress for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Jane Fonda signed part of her speech in 1979, as she accepted the Best Actress award for Coming Home. Marlee Matlin also signed when she won Best Actress for Children of a Lesser God in 1987, becoming the first deaf person to have won the award. Due to air this spring, Rachel plays saleswoman Joanne Scott in the comedy about an Essex double-glazing showroom in the 1980s. Britain was also on Rachel's mind during her post-Oscars interviews. After revealing that she and Chris Overton had celebrated their triumph with a burger, she added, "We are dying to go home. There are loads of crew that can't be here that helped us with the movie, so it will be really nice to go home and show them. They were a huge part of why it was successful. We have said all along, if it ends at the nomination stage, we are so happy with that." And then they read out The Silent Child. "It is just so crazy. We still can't believe it. We would love to extend this story, maybe for a feature film or a longer drama, so hopefully it will help with that, because it's a pretty decent concept." Looking at the response to her signed acceptance speech, it is fair to say that millions of people around the world would agree with